Welcome everyone to our Elevating Like a Pro series presented by GMC. You're such an important ally at the intersection of entrepreneurship, technology, lifestyle, business, and culture for those who are building inclusive, equitable businesses. And for that, I am truly grateful. For everyone joining us and the audience today, please know that you are the key to elevating Black business innovators. So thank you for not only being with us right now, but of course, for joining us in the work ahead. I'm Corey Hale. Most of you guys know me by now. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Culture Banks, and we're going to unpack the importance of elevating cultural business standards by examining strategies for utilizing new, inclusive, very simple resources that are easily leveraged for optimal founder success. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right into what I'm considering a very conscious conversation around elevating cultural business standards with our excellent, esteemed panelists today. First up, we have Jay Lundy, who leads investments and new ventures at Combs Enterprises, which was founded by Sean Diddy Combs. Prior to joining Combs Enterprises, Jay actually led growth strategy and transformation projects at Boston Consulting Group. And if that wasn't enough, Jay, which is already impressive, he also is a serial entrepreneur and founder himself because he founded Feel Good Protein, which is a health and wellness company, along with Civitas, hopefully I pronounced that right, Jay, which is a government tech platform. He does invest and advise in early stage companies in the healthcare, fintech, and art spaces. And we also have Kelly Eiffel joining us. She is the founder and CEO of Guava, which is a full service digital banking institution working to close the racial wealth gap by providing equitable financial products to Black small business owners. Prior, though, to founding Guava, Kelly co-founded Seneca Network, which is a nonprofit organization that connects Black and Latinx founders at the earliest stages of their businesses with angel investors, mentors, and of course, industry experts. But before Kelly got into all of this entrepreneurship life, she actually began her career in education on the founding team of a public high school in central Brooklyn. She's also led math departments in Brazil and Dubai. So, I mean, our girl Kelly is international. Jay, Kelly, thank you both so much for joining us in this conversation today, because I know that you guys are going to keep it 100, as we like to do at Culture Bank, and really give our audience what they need to know about tapping into these cultural business standards and ways that they can improve not just their business, but perhaps get in touch with investors in a meaningful and authentic way. So with that, Jay, let's get started. I got to throw out the first question to you, because you are an investor now, full-time is what you do, but the majority of investors, they just don't look like you, Jay, or they don't run, or they're not involved with like impact mission-driven work. Can you tell us about really your path to becoming an investor, along with the unique space that Combs Enterprise operates in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, Kelly and Corey, it's so great to be with both of you. Investing is something that 15, 20 years ago was foreign to me. And I'll tell a story to bring some context around that. When I went to college, I went to Harvard, a lot of my friends did investment banking and venture capital. And all I knew about banking was Wachovia, Bank of America, where you got your checking and savings account. So when I saw my friends doing this investment banking thing, I got intrigued. And for me, that both showed just the gap that some of our community faces when it comes to finance as a whole, but also it shows the power of investing, the power of finance to hopefully at some point help level the playing field. So that's important to me because it took me a while to get into my seat. I started off actually as a teacher of Teacher America in New York. I then went and actually worked in impact investing, my first taste at investing, where I focused on how to look at nonprofits and think about sustainability. So instead of just giving the grant every single year, how do you tie that grant to KPIs to make sure that you're getting some ROI on that grant? And it might not be financial returns, but could it be more lives saved, more people fed, more kids taken care of? So that muscle of trying to think about impact and returns, whatever they look like, really laid the foundation for me to think about a eventual career in investing. But as I said, teaching, doing impact investing, for me, it needed to be at the intersection of impact and helping people. I eventually went to the Boston Consulting Group, where I did a lot of project focused on impact. And when I got this amazing opportunity with Combs Enterprises, through some really interesting connections, I really knew that for me to really have the best experience in that role, we had to combine the investing with also impact. And that is exactly what we do. Mr. Combs is focused on building his second mountain. So a lot of the things we talk about is how do we actually improve our communities? So when we look at an opportunity, we're not just looking at financial returns. We're not just looking at IRR and all these fancy terms they put on measuring an investment. We want to see real lives impacted. And look, if we can do good at the same time, fantastic. We're all about sustainability. We're all about sustainability in the sense of, can businesses stand up by themselves? Both the things that we create and incubate, but also the things that we invest in. So the other thing I'll say very quickly is, it is hard because both the investing world, it is something that still to this day is very white, very male, very straight. And there's an opportunity for all of us to play in trying to shift that narrative. You often hear companies and investors say there just aren't good Black companies to invest in. And that is the most bogus cop-out you can possibly imagine. Investors have to look deeper, harder, have to get comfortable going beyond just that first level of connection to network to find those great investment opportunities. And everything that happened last year has shown and shined the spotlight, but there's so much more that needs to happen. And yes, it's on me and investors who look like me to do that and do our part, but it's also key for us and other people to make sure that those straight white male investors also focus on opportunities as well to support great companies. And Black companies in many cases are great companies. And we just need the opportunity to have the investing channels, and especially early stage. So I'm going on a rant here, and this is something I love talking about. And it's just something that is so necessary. So I'll stop there, but really excited to dive in deeper, Corey, as we go forward.
Yeah, no, I love your passion, Jay. That's why I love you so much. And the energy that you bring to the space, because we need more people like you that aren't just, hey, we're trying to do like investing for good, but like who really understand entrepreneurship and the things that not just entrepreneurs go through, but especially Black entrepreneurs and founders of color, because their path is just, it's not like being a founder who is not in the minority, which brings us to Kelly, who, by the way, I actually met through Jay a few months back, which randomly enough, myself, Jay, and Kelly, we actually only know each other through the computer. We've never actually met any of us in real life, but that's okay. Post-pandemic, I'm sure that will happen. Kelly, You are an entrepreneur who is doing what I call like the great hard work in figuring out the problem and bringing solutions to the table. I mean, there are a number of neobanks, right? Which are these new banks that have come online, known as these digital banks. They're building products cater to specific markets, or I know the term that most VCs don't like, a niche market, so to speak. But can you just share more about what Guava is specifically doing, how they're catering to the banking needs of the Black community?
Yeah. And so our North Star really is about closing the racial wealth gap. Like you said, I worked in education for a while. And so the through line for me has always been creating opportunity and access for people that look like me. And so that was 17-year-olds in high schools in Brooklyn. And now we're talking about entrepreneurs around the country. And the thing about Guava is using, like what we're doing is using the tools that we know that are impactful to elevate that, the status or the net worth of Black families. We know that Black folks can make more money, that their net worth is about 12 times more than when they own businesses than those that don't. And so using that lever to help folks accelerate their business, to make their first hire is really our North Star. So we are offering a checking account and debit card for entrepreneurs to make the right first step. A lot of people will use their personal checking account to operate their business out of. They'll be using a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America or any other traditional bank that looks at them as a number on their bottom line that doesn't really bring them a lot of value, and there are air quotes around that. And so we don't think of anyone that's coming through our door, our virtual door, as a number or bottom line. There is a lot of value because we understand what they're doing for their community, what their work is doing for themselves, for their families. And the thing that we're adding on to just banking is a community. And so we lost a lot of that in COVID, but we also recognize that there's so much value that founders bring when they connect with each other, when entrepreneurs connect with each other. They leapfrog because you have the opportunity to say like, oh no, girl, don't do it that way. I did it this way. Or use my tax accountant because he's going to make sure that you avoid these pitfalls. Or let's do this together. Or here's a, advisor who's been really helpful for me. And so bringing all of that in with the North Star of building Black businesses, building resilient Black businesses means that we can't just focus on, the necessary element of financial wellness, but also recognizing that people need to come together to create, build, and grow. And so we're creating that space for them to do that with Guava.
I love that. And the importance of really bringing ownership, like Black ownership to Black banks, which is how a lot of people are able to get finance for their business. It actually just reminded me that PayPal just came out with an award for Maggie Lena Walker, who was the first Black woman to charter a bank and serve as its president in the United States. And we need more Black women like you, Kelly, right? We're like, hey, there are all these different things, but we got to get to the actual decision makers, right? Because which are people like you, people like Jay, like, hey, the capital is out there, but if we aren't actually controlling that capital, like we're still banging on the door, right? Trying to get people to pay attention and understand the importance of what it is we actually do. So Kelly, I'm gonna stick with you for a minute because the banking situation, and Jay, feel free to chime in on this as a regular Black person who I'm sure banks. And I also want to say you threw out Wachovia. I was like, oh, Jay is dating himself. He threw out Wachovia.
I'm an 80s baby, proud of it.
No, I'm just thinking like some people tuning in are like, Wachovia, huh?
What is that?
I'm gonna have to look into that further. But no, I just thought that was funny. Sticking with the banking for a second, I want to throw out a few statistics because the Black community actually makes up a little more than 18% of the unbanked and more than 31% of the underbanked group in the US. This is according to the FDIC. When you hear those type of statistics, Kelly, how much of a game changer is it that Guava can be specifically for this demographic? I mean, these are staggering statistics.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add one on. About 80% of Black small businesses don't have lending relationships with banks. And so that means most of them don't have a commercial relationship with the bank. And so they're not using, they don't have a business bank account. And so all of that tells me is that there's just so much work to be done and so much opportunity for growth and for progress. I mean, I don't think that you can, or anyone can start this work or have this perspective without kind of feet on the ground. Like we know what it means to be a Black person. We know what it means to have a bank account and not be treated well at that branch, or, get asked for a lot more information, or just have that like thing in the back of your mind wondering, why is my experience like this? And so, I think we're all coming to this from that perspective, that we know there's a lot of work. There's not many surprises here. Much of it has been confirmed as I dig in, as I talk to more entrepreneurs, as I talk to bank regulators, that this problem that I knew to be true from personal experience is true for most of us. That's what the stats say. That's what, everyone is saying. And so I think, Guava, because we are focused, I don't like to use niche. We are focused on a specific community. We're able to create problems for that community and not try to retrofit anything that already exists for them to just make it work. And so focusing on Black folks that are entrepreneurs in their businesses allows us the ability to create things that are different, that don't exist, to create things that are specifically designed to serve them and to serve their businesses. And so we can think about underwriting a little bit differently. We can talk about transparency and what that means for an entrepreneur to understand how their cash flow might impact their credit line. Like all of those things are things that we are talking about and want to build into our products so that our members have a clear understanding of their financial health and not just like this, financial literacy term that folks throw around. We really are like their success is our success. And so with that perspective, there is no opportunity for us to do anything but help them build.
Right.
That's what I
Jay,
had
I'd love
one
you to
thing.
jump in here.
So, yeah, one thing to what Kelly said that's so important. If you look at other industries, if you look at certain verticals, there are focused or dare I say niche financial products in industry. So if you are a manufacturing company, there are specific financial institutions that give bespoke solutions and ways of financing for those industries. So we've been doing kind of niche or specific or focused things for the mainstream population for years. If you look at how we created our current financial institutions, they were created for the target consumers, whether they were white or from New York or from California. We've done this. So all of a sudden we start doing these things that are geared towards the Black community or other groups. Then we hear these words about, oh, this market's too small, or oh, these are not great lending markets. It's bogus. And I think that what Kelly's doing, and I will stress the element of community, because community and network are so key. And intentionally building that into the banking ecosystem that she's doing is fantastic. And I talk to fintechs all the time. And that piece of it is really what so many are missing. It becomes just transactional, just focused on money in, money out, but to focus on both doing it to an untapped market. I like to think about the Black banking community, if you want to put it in kind of comparisons, as this untapped kind of market that, if fully utilized, is massive. And I'm sure Kelly has all these numbers to show that. But if we just kind of invested in supporting entrepreneurs of color, we would see significant impacts to GDP, to unemployment, to wealth. It would be fantastic. And you think about, oh, well, we have to do all these things from a government perspective. The more we support and empower these communities, the less, if you're taking that angle, the less you have to worry about kind of the government kind of doing all this stuff. So it's truly a win-win for everyone from an economic and a political standpoint. So I just want to stress that, Guava, I think, has the potential to be a game-changing platform because it's not just bespoke and personalized banking solutions, but it's building a community that will be a through line to having impact now and in the future.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jay.
completely. No, I was gonna say completely agree with Jay. I want to pick up really quickly though, Jay, on something you said in regards to getting involved with untapped market opportunity, especially as it relates to the investing side, because typically investors, they love to invest in people who look like them and are from their community. Obviously, this presents a major problem. Let me run this down for you guys. 70% of venture capitalists are white, 26% are Asian, and less than 3% of them are Black. So Jay, can you share why prioritizing underrepresented founders, in addition to underrepresented investors, actually creates an untapped market opportunity for the investment work that you do at Combs Enterprises?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good question because the stats you said are spot on. What I'll say even more, there's something called a cap table, CAP table. A cap table shows you who is invested in a startup. So what you see with some of the big startups that we know now that are these billion-dollar companies called unicorns, is you see the same people, the same investors that show up on these cap tables. And it's really a product of this network, this club of the best ideas, the best capital tend to go to the same people. And historically, that has looked like people who are the investors. So there's a massive opportunity to start shifting that, because what you see is, we get in a situation where, we miss amazing companies. And there are ideas that people of color have that don't get the funding they need, don't get the incubation they need. The problem is, the number of Black investors, people who have been open to looking at these companies, is so small. So you have the same investors that, I'm sure all three of us kind of know and communicate with, who get stretched and have to support every single thing because there just aren't a big enough network of investors who fund, intentionally Black and brown startups and ideas. So to me, the solution and why it's so important is if you get more people kind of pouring money into Black businesses, you're just going to see great businesses pop up all the time. So it becomes less about, oh, I have to only support Black businesses. It's if you are supporting the best businesses, a portion of those businesses should and will be Black and brown. Our community, the Black community, has been entrepreneurs forever. You know why? Because we've had to be to survive. So my bet is on, if you invest in these Black entrepreneurs, we will certainly, at the very least, be on par with other companies. But I would even put the bet that they would outperform. And you're starting to see some initial data. And this data takes a long time to build, but shows that some of these Black businesses are outperforming when they're getting fair terms for access to capital. So to me, there is a business case in addition to just the social impact case to support these companies, because they will truly give you returns, and in many cases give you outsized returns to investing in broader segments.
Completely agree. I want us now to all collectively tap into our serial entrepreneur bag, so to speak, because a lot of people, watching, they're like, okay, look at Jay, like he started multiple companies, now he's an investor, and they're looking at you, Kelly, and all the stuff that you built along the way, and they're like, Corey, we need, some very practical things that we can do to help us essentially level up our businesses. And if those are simple, free resources, are they digital things? We want to understand how we can, get to the point where, we're like a Guava, where we're building this and we understand our market, we understand our demographic, our consumers very well. And for someone like you, Jay, it's like, hey, how do we get to the point where I'm on my second or third business, but I still feel like I haven't got the investment or I've been able to get the attention of the right investors to help capitalize my particular company? So with that, Kelly, we'll give Jay a break for a second. Hey, Kelly, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm going to say, which might be annoying to some folks, is your network. And I think the thing that we often struggle to do is self-promote. I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at like talking about myself. I think we've been taught to like be humble or something like that. But being really clear about what you're building, asking when you meet someone new, who else you should be talking to, being really intentional about that. Because Jay, I'm sure this is true for you. I'm not here because like I am, I've done this on my own. I've done this because people have made introductions to me. I met you guys because of an introduction. All of the work that I've done and the access that I've had has been because I've built relationships, genuine relationships with people. And it hasn't always been asking for something. It really has been opportunities for me to learn, opportunities for me to help, and building relationships. Someone said to me today that no one should ever hear about your company in the boardroom for the first time because they will say no. And that like, it stuck with me because it means that other people should be talking about your company. So whatever that boardroom is for, someone should be nodding because they've heard of you, they've heard of your company, they've heard of the work that you're doing. And that only comes by talking to everyone. And so I think that is like one of the most important things that entrepreneurs could be doing.
I would piggyback that, and I think network is so important. I think that when you need things, especially as an entrepreneur, as a founder, whether you're trying to start some billion-dollar company or you've got a local salon and you're trying to get to operation number 2, or you're trying to hire your first employee, being able to have people who can answer those tough questions is really the challenge. So many entrepreneurs, I think it's 90, 95 plus in the Black community, are the only person in their business, meaning they don't have employees. So what you need is you end up being the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, everything. So if you can call on people to answer those tough questions for you, you really, really kind of release some of the leverage on you but you also have someone who can answer the tough things to help your business going. And that's why we see so many businesses fail, because there's just so many problems and challenges as a business getting started. When you don't have the right resource to help you get through that problem, it's certainly really challenging. The other thing that I think is so key is just making sure that you are the subject matter expert in what you do. And I think Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours that it takes to be an expert. And for some people and some businesses, that may mean you have to go some professional route, get some degree or accreditation. But if you're selling t-shirts or you're an artist, that may mean just focusing and building your craft. And it's doing it when the lights are out. So to use a sports analogy, it's practice. It's, the game's over, you won, you lost, but you're still in the gym putting up buckets. And that approach, whether you are doing something with hands, whether you're something, on your computer as a tech entrepreneur, you just have to really focus and say, this is something that I care about, I'm passionate about. And when it's not fun, when it's not sexy, when it's not easy, if you're kind of focusing on how you improve your craft, that's to me, what the success is. And when we talk to entrepreneurs, one of the questions in our diligence process is exactly that. It's describe how you're scrappy. Describe how you get things when they're not easily presented to you. And we love to hear when entrepreneurs have all of these crazy stories about how hard they hustle or how they access a resource that cost a ton of money in a way that was inexpensive, how they use their network to get to a particular advisor. Those are the stories that show resourcefulness. And that to me is a proxy for success.
Jay, I want to stick with you and talk a little bit more about funding. Just because you see venture capital to me is what I call sexy in terms of you see it written everywhere. So like this must be like what needs to happen and what's hot. And if I'm not a VC backed company or I don't have all these investors, advising or a part of my organization, then my company perhaps isn't going to be super successful. However, I think that that's not true. And there is a lot that goes into whether or not a company is going to be successful. Obviously, some of the things you just mentioned. However, when you look at the broader investing ecosystem, to me, the cultural business standards. So, I mean, as some statistics I gave out earlier, like there needs to be more diversity of thought within these funds. However, we have seen a rise in Black run funds, right? And a lot of them are in the impact space. However, the money that these funds have, maybe anywhere from $20 to $100 million, is penance on the actual amount of VC money that's out there. Is it more so that the funds that already exist, they need to open their minds to diversity of thought, diversity of investing? And do you think that for Black run funds, that it's something that is more tangible, having this cultural business standard be at the forefront of what they do and how they think about investing in people of color?
That's a great question. And if I were rewriting everything, I would like to see a world where our traditional venture capital firms, the ones that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years and tend to be led by white men, it's great when they create side funds that are focused on diversity and people of color and women. Great, we'll take that. But I would love to see a world where there was intentionality in investing in Black, brown, women from the main fund. Like, why do we always have to have this little side fund that typically is smaller and typically is kind of run a little bit differently? The goal is, if you are an investor at any level, you are looking at Black businesses and making sure that you see perhaps just as many Black businesses. So maybe the solution is around KPIs and say for every, we're going to match population. So if we see 100 businesses, we're going to see 15 that are Black, we're going to see 15 that are Latinx or 18 that are Latinx. We're going to do it by population, because what happens now is you just don't get access to those funds. And if you do, you get access to this smaller, sidecar that's just for Black people. So I think there needs to be a shift from the broader VC community, number one. I think Black run funds, and you're exactly right, there have been so many that have popped up so many that have raised 9-figure, $100+ million funds. And that is amazing. And we need to continue to see more pop up. They are doing, and I talk to so many of these the general partners at these funds, they are doing tremendous work. And as I said before, there are too many amazing opportunities to meet the limited cash that they have. So even if I said there were 50 Black funds, each of them with 50 or 100 million bucks, that may sound a lot, but there are thousands, tens of thousands of Black entrepreneurs with ideas that could be funded. And we just need to be able to balance that a little bit more. The last thing I'll say, Corey, is there's venture capital, and you talked about kind of institutions. Venture capital is the sexy way to raise capital, but I would also stress that there are corporations that have kind of venture and investing arms. There are also, banks and other capital, whether it's loans and other type of financing that provide more options to people. So I'm personally happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk about the funding landscape, just because we focus sometimes just on VC. But if we broaden it a little bit, there may be better opportunities for certain people based on the type of business they have, based on how they see their business growing in the future.
Yeah, and with that, let me just add on to that and give you guys some transparency into Culture Banks. We've been around for almost 4 years at this point. And in the beginning, of course, we went what I consider the sexy route, like let's get venture capital funding. But our business model is not something that necessarily aligns with the VC mindset of how they want to look at returns, especially with the focus of our company. So we really had to dive into alternative funding. So I'm with you on that, Jay. I actually want to do an entire series around alternative capital. And no, none of you guys take our idea just yet, but I'm gonna put it out there. It's called What the Fund. And it's all around alternative capital because it is very, very important. And this is not just for people of color. These are for people that are running businesses that, are not necessarily going to be 10, 20x. But if you run a business where this business can get to a few $100 million a year, I don't think anyone is going to say that's a bad business. It just might not be a business that aligns with the VC model. So just throwing that out there about alternative capital. But speaking with entrepreneurship, funding, and women, Kelly, this number still bothers me to this day, primarily because it hasn't really changed. I think that's why it still bothers me. And that's that Black women only receive 0.06% of all VC funding that's out there. When you hear a number like that, when you hear that type of statistic, how do you reconcile that with making sure that you're able to stay steadfast in your approach to, if you're going to be doing more funding for Guava, because we are up, and by we, I mean Black female entrepreneurs, we are up against staggering odds.
Yeah. But like I said, not surprising, you look at corporate boardrooms, you look at all of these spaces, we're not there. And I like to remember something that I think Nicole Hannah-Jones said once, that America's too racist to be capitalist. And that's what that reminds me of, that like, if you truly believe that you're investing in the best businesses, that, intellect and genius is democratically distributed, then that number would not be that small. And if you use the stat that Black women are building more businesses than anybody else in this country, then that number wouldn't be that small. So I know I'm not coming into a space that's going to judge me on merit. And that gives me an upper hand. That lets me know that I know how you're going to interpret me walking into this room. I can do some insider baseball. I know what questions you're going to ask me. I know you're going to talk about the market size and how small it is. I know you're going to ask me about, are these businesses really valuable? Are they profitable? Why are they all of those questions I can start to anticipate. And it sucks that it's not a level playing field. I'm not coming in and being judged on the merit of my company, on the merit of what I've done and who I am as an entrepreneur and a founder. I'm being asked those questions, but all with the backdrop of sexism and racism. But that has been our reality for our entire lives, and we know how to navigate those spaces. And so when Jay talks about Black entrepreneurs outperforming others, to me, I'm like, that's obvious because we've been doing more with less this whole time. And so if you give me something, I'm going to multiply that, because that has been my experience in America. and I'm saying but I'm talking to everybody, right? That has been our experience to thrive in situations that others won't see it an opportunity to create like gold out of something that is, in other people's view, trash. And so, I know the stat. I've lived the stat. I'm living the stat. It is daunting for sure going into a fundraising round with that number. But I don't have a choice, I have to do it. This is the world that we live in. I'm excited to be a part of that change and to hopefully turn around and bring other women with me, bring other founders with me, and share what I've learned with them as I go along. But, the goal is for us to change that and for that number to grow.
Jay, I wonder if you wanted to add something. I know personally that Jay, with the work that he does with Combs Enterprises, that they've invested in female founders. One of them is a friend of mine, and Jay's also married to a woman. So I'm just throwing it out there because I know that Jay looks at companies and, people of color and women and, is doing the work, but knows that those great companies are out there. And he himself has taken that leap and invest in those types of founders.
Yeah. So one thing I want to just say, and this is, plug to Combs Enterprises, but also the work that we're doing now is, look, as a man, especially a Black man, it's very easy to fall into stereotypes. It's very easy to ignore your blind spots. It's very easy to have unconscious biases that you're not introspective about. So acknowledging all of those things, we have done a lot of things on making sure that, we hire the best people, but we also don't just, look at our networks and look at our buddies and email them for new roles. And what that's manifested in, the person that Corey's mentioning, we bought her company, we brought her in to run a business that we've been incubating. You heard a lot about in February 2022. I won't say much more than that, but an exciting e-commerce platform supporting Black and brown entrepreneurs. And she has made 4 hires, and they've all been women. So we're building this tech company around e-commerce with 5 Black women as the first employees. And that bucks all of the notion that Black people can't do tech, Black women can't do tech. So we're really excited about that. When we look at our spirits business, so this is not something we started, recently, but we've had our spirits business that has Ciroc and De Leon. That team is led by this amazing Black woman and a team of Black women. So I think it's important that all people, but especially men, and especially Black men, not just talk the talk, but really do things. And when there are opportunities to hire the best person, making sure that women have every opportunity to get that. And that's something that I pride myself in. And it's something that is just so important because you're right, Kelly. If you put everyone in an even playing field, you put, Black men, Black women, you put all the groups in a playing field. If I have to bet based on historically what our country has done, based on the barriers and the shackles that our people have been on, I am betting on Black women over anyone else. And I think that needs to translate to business, that needs to translate to how we invest. And we're trying to do our part through the things that we're building and incubating and the talent we're bringing in, because we know that it is hard. But who knows better than how to navigate hard things than Black women, just if you look back at what's happened historically and what continues to happen today.
I couldn't agree more with that. Black women, they help build up entire societies. It's not just the community in which we're from. We help build up entire societies. Okay, I have one last question. This is going to go out to both of you because we are moving forward as a society. I mean, as I mentioned, there are several. This year alone, we've seen more Black funds, VC funds, than we've ever seen. Not to mention, as Kelly mentioned earlier, Black women, they do start more businesses than any other racial demographic. So if we decide to keep with this shift, this positive momentum, and create this new dynamic of power that is inclusive, it's collaborative, and really is going to be where diversity is paramount, how would you all each define what it takes for Black entrepreneurs in this day and age to really elevate themselves like a pro?
I can take a first crack at this. So when I think about elevating like a pro, I think about getting over imposter syndrome, understanding that you belong at all tables, all conversations. It's having an answer. So Kelly talked about it. You know the question as a Black entrepreneur and as a woman they're going to ask you, being ready to knock those out of the park every single time. So to me, elevating like a pro is, knowing you're, the best, the baddest, you're it, but also being prepared in that way, doing your homework, doing your practice. So there are no ways for them to say, hey, look, I don't think that, I don't like that answer. You have it already. So to me, that is elevating like a pro.
I was talking to someone earlier today and I kept using this word and I'm going to use it here. Is ruthlessness. I think, when you talk about elevating and what we need to do to really thrive in this next market, it is being ruthless with your time, with your networking, with your business. And not ever allowing anyone to diminish that value and whatever it is that you bring. And so you have something that makes you genius, that makes you great at what you do, and make sure that you're ruthless about that. And so sing your own praises, make sure people know your name, make sure people know your business, bring people along with you that might have a different type of genius that you can build off of, but really being ruthless with the growth and the success of your business.
All right, I love to hear all of this. I want to open it up now to the floor for some Q&A, and we do have some questions already submitted. These are things that are top of mind for people. Jay, this first question is for you, and our audience wants to know, what are some of the successful skills you think people need to have if they want to go the route of becoming an investor? I know you talked about the 10,000 hours earlier to become an expert, but are there any more specific things that you felt really help you to be able to find success in your current role?
Yes. So we've talked about some of these things. One, just being able to navigate your network. You might not have the biggest network in the world, but figure out who knows someone in venture capital. It is still very much a apprenticeship type of model in the venture capital community. So if you can find people to connect you, that is a huge leg up. The second thing is there are so many jargon and acronyms in venture capital, and I've tried not to say too many today. So understanding those, understanding how cap table math works. And that might sound complicated, but if you're in venture capital or excited about it, look it up. Look up things like cap table math, IRR. These are some basic terms that one of the things I've seen people ask me as someone who was not traditionally in this path, almost as tricks to understand if I really deserve to be in my seat. They've thrown out these acronyms, they've thrown out these terms. And I've responded quickly and fast and said, look, I know what this is. And I know how to do this type of analysis. I know how to understand and appropriately think about this or that. And the third thing I'd say, if one is network, two is kind of do the homework. Three is always have a couple of companies that you like. And they can be very established companies, or they can be companies that a friend runs you've heard of, but be able to have a pitch for them. So if I were to say, hey, Corey, you're interested in venture capital, what are some companies you like and why? You could say, oh, I love this guava company. The founder's fantastic. She's a perfect profile to run this company. They're focusing on building a fascinating digital bank with a community element. They've got this path to $1 billion in 3 years, blah, blah, blah. Being able to have that conviction over a couple of companies in your head. So if I meet you at an event or at a networking session, you can kind of tell me and show me that you've got the chops to be in this community. And that's kind of something I think can give you a leg up and get you in front of some opportunities.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jay. Kelly, this next question is for you. And it's really around fundraising, but more so in the sense of how do you try to navigate figuring out what investors you want to reach out to? Do you have investor profiles and say, hey, I think this type of investor would be interested in the business that we're running?
I do. I'm super organized about my fundraise. So I have types of investors that I want to focus on, whether it is the size of check that they write, the industry that they focus on, or if they have an impact that's for me, that will be different, obviously, for other businesses. But the thing that I do that I've picked up from a couple of other founders, I have a very long spreadsheet, and I've shared it with folks to say, well, what intros can you make for me? Write your name next to that fund, write the name of the person. And I keep track of who's made intros, where I am in the process with them. I follow up. I thank them for that introduction. I let them know, if the person passed, if we're, advanced conversations. And that has allowed me to one, maintain relationships. So when people are making intros, they know that it's not just going into the ether. I'm doing something with it. And I'm thanking them for that, for expanding or opening their network to me. But I'm also making it really, really easy for people to answer, how can I be helpful? Here's a spreadsheet. Here's how you can be helpful. It's really easy. Type your name. Here's a blurb about Guava that you can forward along. And I make it a really simple process for other people to help me out in this.
Making it as easy as possible for other people to help you, which is actually some of the best advice I got from my friend, who's also an entrepreneur. She's one of the few Black women that's raised over a few $1 million at this point. She's like, Corey, you have to make it as easy as possible to have people help you out. She's like, write out everything for them. So I completely agree with that. Okay, Jay, this next question is for you. It's a little touchy. I mean, not overly touchy, but this person wants to know, do you think that impact funds that are celebrity driven are actually achieving the goals of helping underserved entrepreneurs? And let me just throw out a full disclaimer on this one. This is actually a topic that we get a lot at Culture Banks, to our inbox, because there are a lot of funds right now, won't call out any celebrities, but celebrities are putting their names behind funds, but with the culture in mind, so to speak. But we can't really see what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll just clarify a couple of things for us. So, we don't have a Combs Enterprises or Sean Combs venture capital fund. So the investing we do is really kind of off our own balance sheet. So, it doesn't really change the fact that we do make investments, but we're not operating like a venture capital firm. We don't have, other people's capital that we're investing, which is important because a lot of the venture capital funds that are tied to celebrities, and many of the celebrities that everyone listening in would know and respect, they are not just that person's money, they're also other investors called LPs, limited partners. So that does, to be very transparent, that does change things because it's not just XYZ celebrity making decisions on where to invest. XYZ celebrity may have only 10% of the money in the fund, 30%, it may vary. So when you see things and have questions about, oh, they're supposed to be XYZ's fund, but they're investing in all this other stuff, there are some real reasons and structural reasons why that's happening. So that's just kind of a full transparency. For us, though, we are investing kind of in the things that we care a lot about. So we're not, constrained by having to appease other investors who we're investing alongside. What we do is things that we truly care about. And because of that, while we don't write as many checks as other people, we certainly, in the things that we do, are very intentional. And we look to see that there is an impact being had. And that impact can look in many different forms. That can be, hey, we are supporting a company that is founded by a Black or brown or woman entrepreneur. And the support and impact we're having is creating an entrepreneur and supporting that entrepreneur, but also their idea. There are other things we support that might not have a Black or brown entrepreneur, but the company itself may be doing something that is extremely focused around Black and brown communities. And for us, that is something that we do invest in. And we've supported some amazing companies that, again, are not Black and brown founded, but are doing tremendous things to impact our community and seeing real results. So that's just, I think, the full transparency of it. So I would just say, when these celebrities have funds, know that not all of those funds are them making all the decisions. And because of that, you may see kind of a variety of investments they're making, and the impact on the culture may not always be as clear as we would hope for.
This just came to me. I want to see a show on Revolt about the investing that you guys do at Combs Enterprises, along with the companies that you invest in. I actually think that it would be very, very interesting. This just came to my mind right now. So I'm putting it out there in the universe because I think it's desperately needed. And to be like, hey, yeah, we're doing all this stuff, but look at all of these companies that we're also helping, and look at all the dope stuff that we've built around it. Just throwing that out there as an idea.
Or we need you at Revolt. We need you at Revolt.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I just think that would be super dope. Like, you guys already have all the elements in the piece. Like, let's just put this together and blow it up. That's all I'm saying.
I'll let the team know.
Yeah, just putting it out there. All right, Kelly, one last question for you, because it seems like, you know, we as female entrepreneurs, obviously we have more of an uphill battle. What just keeps you super optimistic about this space going forward? What makes you be like, hey, it's not just me out here. I mean, I'm building this company for my community, but I'm building it for other Black women who have gone out and, you know, built great businesses and perhaps haven't been able to go as far as I know Guava is going to go.
I mean, talking to our members is a thing that motivates me and energizes and excites me the most, especially on days where like I'm not, and I just want to, you know, curl up and watch Netflix all day. Remembering that I'm doing this for other people, that I am passionate about this, that it matters and I care about it. I'm not building a productivity tool that, you know, 20 of them exist. There is no other Guava. Though no one is building for Black small businesses, and no one's building for Black small businesses in the way that I can and that I am. So, you know, just reminding myself of that, talking to customers when, you know, my internal dialogue isn't helpful. And just remembering that like these are people at the other end of it, and that their success is what I'm building towards.
I love that. Listen to yourself. As I was on my Peloton bike, they told me sometimes you got to clap for yourself at the end, because nobody else is necessarily always going to clap for you, but you got to stay with it, stick in it. Thank you both so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful for the work that each of you are doing, because it really is going to uplift our entire community. Closing the racial wealth gap, which is definitely something that we're a big proponent of here at Culture Banks, and the way that we do media and the way that we do content. And so this is just super dope. And I love the energy. And I'm glad that Jay brought up Wachovia, because I forgot I used to have like a little Wachovia debit card back in the day. Just bringing back all these great memories. And Kelly, what you're doing at Guava, need it desperately. Also reminds me, I think I have some investors that just came to mind while you were talking that I want to connect you with. We can talk about that.
I'll send you the spreadsheet.
Kelly, send it to me too. Send it to me too.
Over.
I'll put my name in.
You never know who people already know. And there might be some companies out there, funds you haven't even heard of yet. But yes, thank you all. Thank everyone for joining. I want to thank our partner, General Motors, again, for standing behind this great type of work. And of course, Culture Banks will be back next month with another great conversation. And I do know who actually we have scheduled, but I'm just going to tease you guys a little bit. But make sure you stay tuned, and we'll see you all next time.